Welcome to this video of the Leadership Masterclass. In this video, I would like to talk with you about global leadership. And I think many of you know that the topic of leadership changed a lot in the 21st century. Now, in the 20th century, leadership was something that was quite one-dimensionally, but in the 21st century, it got global. So for instance, right now, you're not competing with your neighbor anymore, but you're rather competing, for instance, with Wang Lu from China, and you're competing with John from the United States. You're competing with Mamadou from Africa and with Vladimir from Russia. So really, leadership became much more global. And for instance, right now, when big institutions are searching for leaders, they of course are not just looking in their area, they're looking worldwide. So if you want to become a global leader, you need to master certain skills. And I want to talk with you about these skills now here in this video. First of all, before we talk about these skills, let me first of all give you a definition of global leadership. So global leadership is the interdisciplinary study of the key elements that future leaders in all realms of the personal experience should acquire to effectively familiarize themselves with the psychological, physiological, geographical, geopolitical, anthropological, and sociological effects of globalization. So to make it short, it is basically about all these different key components that I just named in relation to globalization. So basically all of these different factors are changing because of globalization, and the studies of global leadership focus on globalizations and how, for instance, the psychological, physiological, geographical, geopolitical, anthropological, and sociological effects changed. So it's not just about the effects that are there right now, it's rather also about the change and where they could be in the future. So in order to foresee the future, you need to master certain skills. And altogether, we have 7 skills that you need to master. So first of all, you need to master strategic thinking. So where is the world gonna go? Strategic thinking is a little bit foreshadowing the future, and also it is all about finding the right strategy in order for your company, your organization, your group to succeed in a globalized world. So strategic thinking itself is difficult to teach, but it's quite an analytical thinking. It is about the what, why, how, where, and when. So we want to focus on these key terms, and then we want to develop a strategy that gets us to a certain place. So it's basically always the A to B principle, that you want to go from A to B, but you don't really know the tools and the way from A to B. So you want to figure out the tools, you want to figure out the way, and then you want to execute and you want to follow that path from A to B. So strategic thinking is always one of the most important key components of global leadership. And especially because the world is more globalized right now, strategic thinking becomes more and more difficult because you need to be an expert in a lot of fields and you need to have a lot of information about different places, different cultures, different ethnicities, and so on in order to make proper judgments. So then number 2, intercultural competence. You need to know about people, you need to know about cultures, you need to know about how they think, and so on and so on. For instance, I'm a person that lived in the United States and in China, so I know the mentalities of these two people. And for instance, in China, I was quite surprised about how different the mentality of Chinese people is compared to people, for instance, from Germany, from the United States. And knowing how the mentality is, knowing how the culture works, is extremely important for leadership. So for instance, the government of Germany, they always look for people who know how to deal with Chinese people. Now, of course, you don't need a master degree in dealing with Chinese, but it definitely is important to know a couple of things about Chinese people and how they act. Now, for instance, when you talk to Chinese people, it is quite important to understand that Chinese people have a much different view of the world than many people from the West have. And sometimes they seem, in my mind, more pure than people from the West. And they really believe, I think, in the good things in people. And if you know a little bit more about cultures, if you know a little bit more about people, you will very soon see that there are major differences. And if you're capable of looking at these differences and saying, all right, I know how to control these differences, I know how to work with these differences, then you are in a very, very good place. And then number 3, crisis management. Crisis management is extremely important. Now, for me, because I manage multiple companies, I always have to solve crises. Because sometimes what is happening is, from Japan, someone is calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning and they want to get things done right now. Because over there, it's, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning and they just woke up and they saw, all right, for instance, their ads are not running because For instance, I manage also a Facebook ads company, and they see, all right, their ads are not running, they don't generate any sales, what is happening? So then what they do is they call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and they tell me, all right, Leon, we need to do something about that. And I'm like, okay, I need to solve that crisis right now. I need to be effective, I need to be quick, and I also need to get some sleep because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. So crisis management is extremely important, and especially because the world becomes more globalized, you want to automate as much as possible of the crisis management, you want to outsource as much as possible of the crisis management, and you want to make sure that they're at as little or as few crises as possible. So then, of course, political astuteness, ethical leadership, improvisation, global mindset. Let's first of all talk about ethical leadership. Now, ethical leadership is in my mind one of the newer terms of the 21st century, because leadership was never really associated, or the focus was never really on ethical. It was always just simply on leadership, on competence, on, let's say, confidence, on control. These were like the key factors of leadership. But now what the new term is basically ethical leadership. So for instance, how to be more empathetic, how to build a company based on honey and not on vinegar. Like, these are kind of the theories or the concepts that are being dealt with right now in the 21st century. So quite an important topic. I think you don't necessarily need to be an ethical leader in order to succeed at global leadership, but it definitely helps. It definitely is, let's say, a new taste to, or a new flavor to the overall flavor of leadership and leadership theories, but it is definitely, in my mind, not necessary to be an ethical leader. So then, of course, improvisation. Improvisation is also extremely important because, let's be frank, you need to be able to improvise in order to succeed. I think one of the most important skills that anyone can ever acquire in life is to know how to improvise. For instance, I often get booked for speaking engagements. I get often booked for standing on a stage and speaking about something for, let's say, an hour or something like that. And at some point I realized, okay, I just need to figure out a couple of things in my life. I need to know a couple of things, and then afterwards I can give that talk again and again and again and again, because I'm an expert in that. But I always improvise. I always improvise all of my talks. I improvise everything that I do in terms of public speaking. So it is quite important to actually do that, in my mind, because it just saves you a lot of time. Becoming very good at improvisation is an extremely valuable skill, and it's difficult to learn. You can only learn it by doing. So then, number 7, global mindset. To understand that connections are not just made between people in, let's say, your hometown, but rather with people from all over the world. Now, right now, I think this is so amazing. You could have customers from all over. For instance, right now the customers for my online video courses come from 170 countries. So basically 170 countries with people who are watching my online video courses. I think this is just amazing if you think about it. Just a couple of years ago, we did not have that opportunity. Before the internet, it was almost impossible for a single person to reach 170 countries just like that. So think about that. Think about that in detail and realize that you as a leader should also focus on global connections, on building trust with people from all over the world. So if you master these 7 skills, then you are a global leader. So you need to master strategic thinking, intercultural competence, crisis management, political astuteness, ethical leadership, improvisation, and global mindset. Alright, that was it now here for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to download this guide right here, just go to the left top corner and then you can download at any given time. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see each other in the next video.